Welcome to Fly on the Wall podcast. I'm your host, Chris Sonksen, CEO and founder of Church Boom. Here you get to sit in on a live coaching session as I coach pastors through the ministry challenges we all face. If you find this podcast helpful, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Hey everyone, today we have a very good friend of mine, Tony Orlando, who's on our podcast today, and we're talking about how we need to change our thinking about the staff and people that we put on our team. We're always thinking about the department they need to lead, but are we looking at, are they natural leaders? It's a great coaching conversation. And also want to encourage you to check out churchboom.org if you have never checked that out. We have executive coaching. If you ever feel like, man, I'm stuck, I want to get to the next level, I need someone to really work with me and a couple of my team members, and we just want to grow. If you ever feel like that, man, maybe executive coaching's for you. All I know is for me, I've been being coached for over 10 years from two amazing leaders in my life. And if you are thinking about executive coaching, go to churchboom.org. You can click the tab there about executive coaching, learn more about that. I think you'd find it to be an enormous help for your ministry. But let's jump into the conversation with my good friend, Tony. But let's jump into it, man. How can I serve you today?
Well, bro, I was wanting to ask you, this has been, I think, the challenge over the last year, trying to merge two churches together, which has really gone, Chris, I would say textbook. They had about 15 people left this church, and they were just, and I'll just give you a little backstory. You know a lot of the story, but for those listening, this was a 10 to 11-year conversation we had with this pastor. He said no 3 times, and the third time he said no was 6 years ago, and I told the Lord, I am done asking this guy. And it'll have to be on him. So we were at the church we were at for 5 years. Our lease was up last June. I drove in the parking lot. He said, last March, he said, I'm done. He's 73. I'm done. Take the church, put your sign over our sign, whatever you want to do. I mean, it was like that simple. You want to talk to your board? No, our board's already decided. We have one board member left. He was 90. Okay, that was what was going on. But it's the beauty is all of his people have stayed, which is, I believe, a testament to his leadership, that because he has stayed, we've kept him. He does a Wednesday night life group, Bible study, great. And so I'm just kind of like next steps. Now that we're moving, we've done all the TI, all the tenant improvement here, but really coming from a standpoint of mobilizing their people and assimilation, Chris. I've always struggled with this. And this is something you've walked through with me before, and I think the repetition is the mother of learning for me is going to help. But just trying to assimilate his people into our people. And we are still at about 15% capacity of those who serve right now. And for us to get past the next lid of growth, I really want to be able to mobilize. That's kind of my goal. How can we mobilize more people and catch, as you've told me, how do we get them involved in ministry right away so they have that higher percentage of chance of staying? We've had a ton of guests this year with about a 5 to 10% retention level.
Okay. So you're talking about first part of that question, or the major part of that question is these people that are part of the prior church, how do we engage them into the life of the church? Correct? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So a couple things. You're coming up on a year, I believe, of this transition and this merge, if you will. One thing to just make sure, and it's not so much what you just asked, but just something to keep in mind. Whenever there's a merge, when one, kind of the stronger one, kind of absorbing the smaller one, if you will, there's something to always just keep in mind that people don't necessarily care what you bring. They care what they get to keep. And I think that's always an important thing to keep in mind. That's not to say that we're going to hang on to everything that needs to be done, but we are, or not to be done, but what they want, but that's what they do care about.
Yeah.
And every time a pastor goes in, I'm going to blow it up and we're going to grow this thing. I'm like, you better keep in mind that people are more concerned about what they keep than what you bring. And you have to somehow navigate that. That's not a problem to solve. That's a tension to manage. You got to manage that tension. I do think that finding, it sounds like it's probably an older congregation, finding a place for them is going to be important. I don't think there's anything tricky about this. I don't have any cool little, hey, try this and it'll work out. I do think that your people need to be aware of bringing people in. Your leaders need to be aware of bringing people in. They need to be aware of recruiting. And I think you also have to find a place for them that might be unique, that might serve the current situation. So here's some people that, man, I don't know, they're not the greeters. And I don't know if I want them greeting. And I don't know if I want them doing this. But what do you want them to do? I think you might have to find something that is productive for them makes them feel valued, but also brings value to the organization, to the church that might not be in existence now. You might be looking to put them in places that already exist, when in reality, the places they need to be don't exist right now. And that may be part of it, but you're going to want to make sure to do that. What you never want to do is threaten the culture that you're trying to create.
Yes.
And I think in one of these situations, your church is growing, you're bringing in new team members. I would add this, even though you didn't ask this, I would add to this, as you bring in new team members and find new positions, especially if it's someone that's paid or even just at a higher level of leadership and they're new to it. Keep this in mind, although it's not really 100% of what you're asking. Who is the cultural guardian? And who's the cultural mentor? So I'm working with a church that's pretty large, several thousand, and they're like, man, we're bringing in staff, we're going to hire 6 more this year. I said, yeah, but who's the cultural guardian? Who's the mentor? And they said, what do you mean by that? I said, who meets with them for the first 6 months to make sure they capture the culture? Literally, the only reason they meet is to talk about culture, because you're going to make sure that they grab the culture. And I think that's something is important, to keep in mind as you're growing, that who's going to capture that culture.
That's great, because I really appreciate that, man. I really do.
So call it cultural mentor, but someone's got to be someone's got to be assigned to someone when they're new in your team to be the cultural mentor. Great. Someone has to be.
Well, next thing then too, we added a service, because the building is very small, and we added a service, which was good because we were hitting our capacity like early on in the first couple months. We added a service. It's been good. We didn't need it. I'm saying we needed it, but we didn't need it. But we had to in order to grow. So we've seen the first service is very thin. It's not very big, but it does spread the crowd. So now we have a little room to grow in second hour. But we're at this. I feel like we're at this lid, and I've really been banging my head against the wall, going, what do we do? This building is all we have right now. We do have some land here we could build, but that's years down the road, even with permits taking 18 to 24 months in our city right now. Okay, so what is the way to maximize that first service? Because that's become very much an option. We has a crowd that has like a regular crowd, but it also has people that come to 11 o'clock, come to 9 when it's convenient. If there's something going on at the fair or the zoo or whatever, San Diego Beach, it's all those things to navigate sports on the weekend. So trying to funnel people through where that service has its own dynamic. You and I had talked a while back about marketing to that service. So any other tips on how to grow that? Because that is our biggest area for potential growth, because we have more seats left. And then at which point in time do we think about doing something else? Because we're going to capacity out at 175 if we fill that service, and then we're stuck going to a third. And what does that look like?
Yeah. So, well, let me ask you: is percentage-wise, what is the percentage of people that come to the first service get over? What I mean by that is, let's say, an auditorium seats 1,000 people, and the guy goes, "Man, we got 1,000 people in one of our services, and we have 300 people in our other service." So he's 30% of the big service.
Yes.
What percentage are you to that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. First service is 25%.
25% of the. Okay, got it.
Yes. Yeah. The overall weekend attendance is 25% is 9 o'clock.
Okay, so you're going to want to, just so you know, you're going to want to try to, that percentage of healthy, especially when you get 3 or 4 services, 30 to 35% is the lowest you want to get, because you want about 30 to 35% of your lowest service to the highest service, even if it's like you have 4 services. Say you have 4 services, it's that one 35%, say 4 services to the highest attendance. Say you had 1,000 at one, 500 at another one, 700 at another one. Okay, but 300 to 350 at this one. You want it to be to the highest one. So you have 2 services, so that's pretty easy to figure out. Have you considered, I don't know if you've done this, but man, we used to do this all the time. Have you ever considered sort of pleading to people and having people move over, even though they don't like it, and just tell them to do it for 6 months?
I haven't. That's a great idea, though, and I think people would do it because 11 o'clock is late for a lot of people, and the 9 o'clock is convenient for most too. So make an invite list and get another chunk of people that come to 9 o'clock versus 11.
I would, because I think if you could move that over, your percentage just needs to go up just a little. I think you said it was like 20 or 25%.
Yes.
It just needs to go up another 10 or 15%, and then it will make sense. You're always going to have one that's a little bit lower. Most likely you are, but that's okay. That's the goal. So let's see if we can move some people over, build both of those up, and then launch a third service, because the additional service is what really helps create momentum, as long as momentum's there.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so hopefully that helps. But I think that's what I would do. I just move people over. That's nothing tricky or anything, but I'm like, please move over here. And you only need to move over, I don't know, whatever the number is, 20, 30, 40 people. Yeah. It's not that hard to do. And just ask for a brief commitment, and they'll end up staying forever. Usually.
That's great. I wish I would have done that from the outset, because that probably would have been the better push on my part to do that up front.
Yeah.
Almost like a church plant,
yeah.
Hey, we're launching this service. We need 40 people to come over. So anyway,
yeah, it's good to do. Also, by the way, think about that. Remember, one thing I've said to you before, or maybe we talked about, maybe we didn't, but I always tell people, don't start second services or third services. Launch them.
Yes.
Yeah. Way different, because you treat it like a church plant. You don't just say, okay, starting next week, we're having 8:30, 10 o'clock, and 9:45, or whatever, 11 o'clock, or whatever the hours were. Mess that all up, but 3 times. Here's the times. Hope you show up. Versus, okay, how do we know 6 weeks in advance who's going to come to what service? And then once we have those people at those services, 3 weeks before we start, how do we start sending them separate communications that only communicate to team 1, team 2, and team 3? Don't start second or third services. Launch them. You get a much better result that way.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I always do. Treat it like a mini church plant. What else you got, man?
Yeah, Chris. So as kind of a staffing question, we have, I'm the only full-time guy right now. We have a worship leader that gets a solid half-time, if not more, salary. But when it comes down to everyone else is gas and a burrito. So like basically $400 or $500 a month, which is not a lot. And so we can only expect so much. Looking back without, starting all over and saying we're going to eliminate everyone and hire one, I'm at this place where I feel like I need another either half-time or full-time person to really push ministry forward. So kind of walk me through the difference or the value in the stipend employees versus maybe one saving up for one really solid, associate or ministry assistant that could really push, kind of move the needle with other ministry stuff that I can't do by myself.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think those are growing pains. You experience those, you experience those all the time with the staff. I do it on the Church Boom side, the South Hill side, all the different parts of my world, where it's like, okay, I'm ready to hire someone, but I don't know if I can afford it. And I'm ready, okay, whoa, that's a stretch. And should I just go with from a full-time, part-time, stipend, 4 stipends, 1 full-time? That's a definite stretch. I think every situation is a little bit different. And I don't know, I think you have to figure out what is best, but I'll step back and say, when you stipend someone and you're paying them $500 or paying $1,000 and you're like, man, I'm only getting 5 hours a week from them or whatever. I think what is really more important, Tony, is this I think is the bigger question, isn't what you're asking. I think the bigger question is, one, do I know what I need and who I need? And who's going to create growth? What's going to create growth? Secondly, because sometimes I think people just like, oh, I need a children's pastor now. Oh, I need a worship pastor now. Oh, I need a youth pastor now. And we just kind of go through this traditional thing. It's like, but what's going to bring the greatest growth? Who's going to bring the greatest growth? Okay, then the other thing is sometimes I think we stipend people and we're not stipending them to lead, we're stipending them to do a job.
Yeah. Wow.
That's a major difference. Huge. It's like, here's this. Okay, then all I do is A, B, and C through the month, right? That's all I got to do. No, I need you to recruit leaders. I need you to develop leaders. I need you to develop volunteers. So I do this whole exercise on mission critical, and I say, man, you got to figure out fill in the blank. If I don't do blank, our future's threatened. What's the mission critical? That if you don't do it, we're in trouble. Now, we can answer that if we spent some time just with you and I for you, but it's like, oh, well, that doesn't work for a guy that works 5 hours a week. Sure it does. What do you want him to do with those 5 hours? I think that's the bigger question, because sometimes I think I think there is a balance between getting someone full-time, part-time, and stipend. I get that, and I really understand that. But I think the mind shift has to be, we tend to hire by department rather than hire by leadership.
Wow.
And what I mean by that is, oh, he's a youth pastor. You know, Andy, one time I was backstage with Andy Stanley, and he told me, I said, man, I heard you got the greatest youth pastor in the world. He's got this big old youth ministry. Yeah. He's telling me all this stuff. We're at the green room in Atlanta. And I go, man, I heard, is he an amazing communicator? And he said, and I quote, he says, oh, no, he's horrible. And I said, he's a lousy communicator. Watch this answer, Tony. He said, I didn't hire him to preach to youth. I hired him to lead. I don't care if he speaks to youth.
Wow.
Think about that. You don't care if your youth pastor speaks to youth? No. What I care about is, can he lead? It's way different. Now you're thinking like, okay, I want to hire people that are going to lead and move this ministry forward and get us bigger and stronger. They need to be able to pay for themselves. When I look at a stipend, I'm thinking, okay, I'm only getting 4 hours from you, but what do I want you to do? I would encourage you to think more about mission critical. What do people need to be doing? Am I ready to hire part-time, full-time, half-time, whatever, stipend? That's a hard decision because I think you have to kind of weigh it out. I think the greater questions is, what's going to give me the bigger results? What's going to grow our ministry? And a mind shift for you is this. I'm not looking to hire this person because they're funny in front of the kids. Youth, children, whatever. I'm looking to them because they're amazing leaders. That is just vastly a different way of thinking. It's like, there's a guy that used to be on my team years ago, and we'll call him Bob. And like, this dude was just a stinking amazing leader. It didn't matter what I put him. I could have put him in charge of, he was doing first all AV, but didn't know anything about AV. Then he moved over to small groups, never did that before. Then he moved over to, and everything the dude touched just blew up major big, but didn't know how to do any of it. Wow. Think about an amazing, flat out, unbelievable leader that you would hire, and you're like, okay, you're going to do youth. Okay. Okay, in 2 years, you're going to do children. Okay. Because he can lead or she can lead. It doesn't matter to them. We didn't pay them because they're really corny and funny in front of the kids, and the kids love them and the parents love them. We pay them because they're amazing leaders and they know how to build things.
Yeah. Wow, that's huge, man. I hadn't looked at it like that, and I think that helps me kind of even think about the next hire, like looking at it, because it's always been, there's a hole in the children's department. We need a children's director, a children's pastor. There's a hole in the worship. We need a worship leader. But man, the leadership piece, that changes even how I recruit and even the questions I ask in an interview to hire said person. Not just, we get this job, here's $400 a month, do it, thanks.
Yeah. It's more of a to-do list then.
Yeah, that's messing with me now, bro, in a good way.
No,
I appreciate that. I really
think about that, because I think we're way too departmental when it comes that way. And I see too many pastors going, okay, I need a youth guy. I'm going to see him speak in front of the youth. I need a children's person. I got to see him. Like, you're looking at it all wrong. Wow. I get it that they may have a calling to youth and a calling to children. I get that. I understand all calling. I get all of that. But they need to mark the box of, this dude will lead whatever you get him. Put him in charge of a restaurant, he'd blow that up. Put him in charge of a small group, he'll blow that up. He or she is a flat out leader. That's what you're looking for, because they'll build whatever you give them. And remember, think about that statement from Andy Stanley. Oh no, he can't speak. I didn't hire him because he can speak. I hired him because he can lead.
Wow.
That's it.
That's amazing.
You got to start thinking that way, and it'll change how you hire and who you hire, and even stipends, because stipends are just check boxes. Oh, they're going to take care of that. I don't have to worry about that now. Like, no, but are they building anything? Are they developing leaders? I can tell you this, man. You need to look. Some of the people that need to realize this. I didn't hire you to do that. I hired you to build up leaders to do that.
Wow.
I didn't hire you to do that. Children's pastor. Oh, I'm running to Costco. I'm doing this. Now I'm going to go to Costco again. I'm running off curriculum. I got to print it. I got to clean the room. I'm like, I didn't hire you to do all that.
Yeah.
I hired you to build up teams and leaders to do all that. It's a totally different way of thinking. But one thing I always say is, everybody asks great leaders what they do. Nobody asks great leaders how they think.
Yeah.
They think differently. I didn't hire them to be because he's a great youth pastor or a great speaker. I hired him because he's a great leader. That's just the way great leaders think. Yeah. That the average guy is just like, I need a youth pastor that's really fun in front of the kids and knows how to put on events and go to camps. I'm like, okay, I'd rather have a leader. And because that guy will just crush it no matter what he puts his hand to. So anyway, I hope that helps.
No, that helps. I'm even looking at myself going, man, I need to ask myself this question. Like, for me, like, am I not just doing tasks? Am I leading? That's a great
100% lead. You got to be leading, and that's part of that mission critical. The whole thing I do on Church Boom University about mission critical. You've got to stay focused on mission critical. Remember, the answer to mission critical, or the question is, if Tony doesn't do blank, our future's threatened. What's the
Yes.
blank? Okay, if the youth pastor doesn't do blank, our future's threatened. Oh, I've got to put on events. No, our future's not threatened. I got to run to Costco to get hot dogs for the kids. Our future's not threatened. You don't develop leaders and build teams. Yeah, our future's threatened. That's totally different. And that's what they have to be focusing on. And think leaders.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, the greatest leaders are obsessed with empowering the right people.
Yeah.
Think about that for a moment. The greatest leaders, I just read that in a book, the greatest leaders are obsessed with empowering the right people. Get the amazing leaders around you and empower them and watch what happens. It'll change everything about the church. So anyway.
Yeah. Chris, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So, man, cool. Man, great talking with you, dude. We're running out of time, but man, I love talking with you. Appreciate your heart, man. You're always such an amazing leader, and you have an incredible servant's heart, and I sure do appreciate you, my man.
Well, I am grateful for your friendship and coaching, bro.
Yeah.
It's been a lot, 20 plus years, man. I'm super grateful. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, man. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good, bud.
All right, see you, bud. All right, bye-bye. Man, that was an incredible conversation with Tony. I think it is so important that we start thinking different about the leaders that we're bringing on our team. Are they just leaders? Are they managers? Are they the right people? Do they know how to lead? It's such a great paradigm shift for our thinking. And then before we sign off, just don't forget to check out churchboom.org and also to check out the tab about executive coaching. I believe in it. I think professionals get coached. Amateurs learn by trial and error. And man, if you get an executive coach in your life, I'm telling you, it will move your church along faster and farther than you could ever do it by yourself. So make sure you check it out. We'll see you next time.